Hey everyone, welcome to Weekend Project. I'm Laura Lynn of the Mama Pop Quilt Shop, and we're very happy to see you here today. Today I'm going to show you how to bind a quilt. Now last Weekend Project I showed you how to deal with a panel, episode number 2. And there's an iCard link there as well, and there's also an episode 1. So there'll be another iCard link there too to get to that one. Okay, so now that it's all quilted up, and it's beautiful, and it's got its lovely little backing to it, and it's trimmed, it needs binding. So now you have a couple of choices. You can stitch to the front and flip to the back and hand stitch, okay? You can stitch to the back, stitch to the front. When I mean stitch, I mean machine stitching. So machine stitching to the back, flipping it to the front, and machine stitching it again. So that's what we're going to show you how to do today. So first off is how do you put binding together? A lot of people go by the rule of 2.5 inches of the strips to go around the binding, because once you get it pressed in half, like I have my big roll here, you need to be able to come up from the back side, and if we line it up as a 1/4 inch seam allowance, to be able to come over that raw edge where the backing, batting, and front top, or flimsy, come to meet, to come over there and then seal it all up nice and pretty, okay? Just like that, okay? So because this was very much lots of tans and browns and beiges and everything like that, so is my binding to go with this. I just thought it might be just nice to be able to match the front and the back sort of thing. So, but I want to show you how I put my binding together. Even though mine's very scrappy, yours going to be, obviously I have to go here for my niece's quilt. I decided on gray on that instead of the multicolored. And you just put one piece to the next, to the next, and the next. So I don't suggest putting them this way, which you would normally sew projects together, and you get your seam allowance, you keep moving on. The only reason why that is, if you were to sew down here as a 1/4 inch seam allowance, when you go to press your binding in half, depending on whether you're splitting your seams or pressing your seams open, or you're splitting them or putting them to one side, and then to come back half again, and then to be able to fold over again, you're almost concentrating the fabric about 8 times in one spot. So the reason that people thought of, the smart people of the internet and quilters, obviously quilters first, is if you lay your fabric one on top of the other, see these are 2.5 inch strips, okay, just like this. Okay, I'm going to show you the camera there. And then you're going to put a pin in on this side or this side, or you can mark a line from here to here, but you're going to sew down from this upper corner to this lower corner on the diagonal, and then you're going to get beautiful pieces just like this, okay, with the backs that just look like this. And that helps alleviate any bulk that's going to come about from sewing back to front or front to back or whatever, even with the hand stitching. Could you imagine trying to go through that one section with trying to just get a couple of stitches in? It'd be really tough. So that's why they put it on an angle. And it looks really nice, actually. So it's a very nice finishing touch. So I'm going to show you how to do this twice. So, you know, hopefully that will set things in for you. So once again, you have your right sides together, okay? And you're just going to line them up so they're on a 45. Okay. It's a 45, isn't it? Whatever that angle is. And you're just going to go from the one very corner up here, up there, all the way down to here. And of course, this gives you an opportunity to take another piece off the side if you like. You know, you guys know I'm trying to collect that for a few years now. It's that little half square triangle. So you can always put a line. And then I'm just going to cut in between that, and that little square is going to go off into another bucket. So, oh, I did put them over here. Okay, so there we go. And once you get that trimmed to the 1/4 inch, you flip it over, and that's one piece done. Okay, and then you just keep lining up your pieces. Obviously, you'd have more strips of width of fabric, or if it's scrappy just like mine, you're just going to have some pieces that are right next to each other. So you line up the next one, just like that. And then we're just going to go sew from that corner to this corner. Make sure it's lined up a little bit better. That's why we put a few pins in sometimes. I find a couple pins is very helpful. If I could find my pins. It's been one of those days. Everybody has one of those days. All right, so line that back up, making sure we're going from the upper left-hand corner to the down right-hand corner on the diagonal, trying to keep it a nice straight line. This is where some of those little laser lights help, or you just put a pencil mark. As long as we get close to thereof, it's all good. Okay, and like I said, you don't have to do this extra part. You can just really trim within a 1/4 inch of this, and then that goes either in your scrap bucket or you find something else to do with it. You can give it to the kindergarten class for scrappy bits and fun. Okay, so come here, there, and then we'll have our 2 or 3 or 12 or 18 or however many strips we're going to have together to make our binding. Okay, and then from here we'll go and take it over to the iron and then hold it. So we got those 2 raw edges together, and we're going to press onto the fold, just like this with our iron, just like that, like it nice and easy, making sure those 2 raw edges are together, moving as we're going, because sometimes we got to do that. And then we have our beautiful binding ready to go. Okay, so move that off to the side. Got my pins over here. Okay, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it on this one. So for this project, I am going to sew to the back. Or sew on the back and flip to the front, okay? So I like to pick a spot that's kind of inconspicuous. You're not really going to see it at the bottom or the top, because a lot of people's eyes tend to travel to the top of a project or to the lower part of a project, and we don't really want this to be seen as a start or stop in any way, shape, or form. So we're going to kind of go in the middle, so which means we're going to flip it over, and on the middle on the side, because this is the side part here, it's coming straight down, right here. I'm going to give myself a nice long tail, because we're going to still end up having to do the same effect, what we did on that fabric pieces of butting them up across each other just like this with these 2 ends. So you kind of need yourself a little bit of space. This is where these lovely little clips come in handy. So you can clip up at the top and clip down maybe, I don't know, 5, 7 inches, 8 inches, whatever's good for you. And then you start from here point on sewing. And then you come around to the top, and you'll come, you know, maybe the same amount of distance of here, up here, stopping, and not cutting the fabric yet. You want to be able to overlap them and be able to piece them, okay? So no worries. Okay. This is just a straight stitch. I got my regular sewing foot on, nothing too fancy-pantsy at all. And we're just going to sew straight down. There we go. And I'll show you how we get to the corners. Hopefully I'm not sewing this too fast. Just the machine is going fast. You can always pause it or slow it down. Show you when we get to the corner. So you want to keep it straight, because you're going to put a fold in it. So you're going to come straight down, and then you visually see about a 1/4 of an inch away from the very end. You're going to stop, back stitch 1 stitch or 2, or whatever you like to do with your machine. You don't have to. And then you're going to break the threads, okay? You're going to have to break the threads. Okay, so we're almost there. Just come a little closer. Little lock stitch and cut the threads. And you take it right out from underneath the foot, okay? Sewn down as far as you can get till you get to the corner, okay? So I'm hoping I'm getting a really good angle with this, with the little close-up camera there, so, okay? And then you're going to fold it up. Hopefully you can see that. I'm trying my best here. I'm trying my best. Fold it up so you get like a little triangle piece, and then you're just going to fold this other right back down, okay? Hopefully you can see that, okay? So what I did is I just went straight. I held it straight. I brought it straight up to give me a little bit of an angled piece of fabric here, and then bringing it straight down. And then I'm going to come down about a 1/4 of an inch there, and then start my stitches, okay? So I'm going to come, I did the fold, just like that. And I'm going to start about a 1/4 inch down and start going all the way to the next end, okay? Hopefully that helps. Okay, just straightening out my fabric. Just folding it over on each other. Sometimes you're going to be a little thick under there at the first start, so you may have to give it a little persuasion, a little shovey shove, okay? And then this is a great time too if you need the clamps to clamp your binding on. This is just a baby quilt, so I didn't really see the point of putting the clamps on or pinning it. But you can do whatever you like, especially for a big project. I mean, the one that I'm putting that binding on for my niece's quilt that you saw on Long Arm Wednesday. And I think the gray would match it lovely. And that's 99 inches on all sides. So I had to make sure that my binding was like 400 and like, I don't know, 10 or 12 inches more to go all the way around and then some and overlapping. So I think I made it actually sure it was like 420 or 460, but the extra bits will just go into the bucket. Okay, and just keeping your raw edge up against the raw edge of your fabric, your quilt project with its batting, backing, and flimsy top, or top done. Okay, you can see I'm getting close to the bottom here. And again, I'm going to stop about a 1/4 inch away. I'm going to stop a 1/4 inch away from the very bottom part and do the same thing as I did on the other one. So you get to see this 4 times at least, okay? Okay. Do a little lock, cut it, bring it out. Fold it straight up like you're pulling its tail, okay? Hold that in place, and then bring it straight down again, and then back under the machine, about a 1/4 inch away. And I think the more colors you have in a quilt project, the more colors should be on the binding or what you can include in the binding. I love a colorful binding. I like it scrappy. I like it very much the fabrics that I used within the quilt. It just goes to, show we use everything. We try to use everything, and we really want it to look beautiful by including those fabrics again. I didn't really want to introduce a new color. I already have this beautiful soft little blue here, which matches the front, and it's got some lovely soft flowers on it. So this is supposed to be a very gender neutral quilt, and I tried my very best between the tans and creams and browns and stuff, and with just a little hint of blue. So, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a boy quilt, doesn't necessarily mean it's a girl quilt. It's just a quilt. It's just a baby quilt. Okay. And lots of people will wind their binding up either on like a toilet paper roll or some sort of little holder, because if you're having to deal with like 400 to 60 inches of fabric, you need kind of some place to contain it to help roll it up as you're dealing with it. So, all right, here we go down to the bottom, almost. Back stitch. And then again, twisting the material so it faces me, bringing it straight up like a tail, making sure it gets that little triangle piece, and then folding it straight down. Hopefully you're really getting this on the small camera, so, because I know Munch can kind of sometimes zoom in there as he's doing the editing. Sometimes, I know it depends on what we're doing. All right, and then straight down, okay. Right. We got one more corner to go. Or 2 more corners? No, 1 more corner. I don't know. We got some corners. And then I'll show you how you link them together. There is a tool, which Angie, just one more book to read. My friend Angie from Texas, she gave to me. But I find sometimes just using the material that you have is just as easy. But sometimes you need a guidance, but there is a binding tool. So if you need the help and you would like the help of getting the 2 edges together, then look for the binding tool. Okay. Maybe we can put a link in there if I get a chance to talk to Munchkin before he does the video. Sometimes the way our schedules are, I barely see him for maybe 10-15 minutes a day. So sometimes it's only about 10 minutes in the morning and about 15 minutes at night, and that's it. But we do our very, very best. Okay. All right, so there again, taking my tail up all the way, making sure that stays nice and square, or nice and flat, so it's laying flat against it. And you get that beautiful little shaped triangle underneath, right? So just like that. Holding it up. And you'll see why that works out so well when we go to flip it to the front. Okay. And do the stitch down then. Now there's nothing wrong with doing a back to the front stitch or even doing the front and then a hand stitch on the back. You could add a flange. A flange is just another little bit of fabric that goes in between, so you can kind of stitch in between or stitch on the one color, and then it helps kind of accent it, sort of thing. And it, you know, if you want to kind of give yourself, oh, okay, all right, we're done there. Give yourself a place to stitch to on the front, especially when if you got the little flange there. Okay, so now you see your two pieces. See how I left that gap before I got to the end? Oops, thread from the long arm. Okay, and then we're going to unclip these two. Okay, and so we have nice long tails. We have these two nice long tails to deal with. Okay, so I'm going to lay it in front here. So hopefully maybe Munchkin can take a moment to focus in here for a moment so you can see what I'm really doing. Okay, so I'm going to lay this one back the way it was because that was our first starting piece. Okay, and we know our strips are 2.5 inches in width, right? So this is 2.5 inches. And that's really all we need is to be able to overlap those pieces is 2.5 inches, okay? So that's a good note. So you just take a piece that you have of 2.5 laying around. You lay it on top of your first one, lining it up at the very, very top. So these are 2 even edges here, okay? 2 even edges. Take your one you just finished as you were coming down all the way around, lay it straight on top of that one, and you're gonna cut right where these two are at the end, or this one, sorry, not these two, because you need the goodies from this one. You're right where this one ends at the 2.5. Okay, so I'm going to take my scissors. Okay, you could mark this if you like, but clearly I know this is right here, so I'm going to go like this and cut straight across. Okay, move that. And now we take our 2 right sides together, just like we were doing our binding. We can probably take this off because I don't think we're going to need it at this point in time. So, because that's just a tiny little triangle. Sometimes it works out perfect, sometimes it doesn't work out so perfect at all. Okay. So now that we have, but I know I come straight down to the bottom here, so it's not going to confuse me cutting that or chipping that piece off. Okay, so now we take our 2 right sides together, just as we were doing to make the binding. Line them up. I know this is my corner, my edge here, and right there, making sure they're right together. And make sure that when you go and you put your pin in, I know I put pins elsewhere. Okay, here and here. I do usually recommend doing the pins at this point in time. Magnetic. And then down here on this end, okay, so right there. And then we're going to sew from here down to there. But making sure that if you were just like to do like a faux sew sort of thing, that those 2 pieces are going to line up together. You haven't flipped and flopped them. You haven't twisted one. You haven't twisted the other, that sort of thing, or you'd be doing some seam ripping to reset that, okay? So we know they're going to sit together correctly once I get them sewn together. And I'm just going to come from this upper corner up here to this lower corner down here. And I'm not going to worry about the back part here because that corner is missing. So I don't think I could get much use out of it, okay? So back underneath the machine. Line it up, put a pencil mark if you need to, or a washable or iron away mark, whatever's comfortable for you. I've done binding for a long time, decades. And I think I'm pretty confident on what I need to do. So there we go. That's what it should look like. And then we're just actually going to cut this piece right off. So you could do it with your rotary cutter on the board, or just take your scissors and trim that within 1/4 inch. Off to the side. And this is where, if you tug it, if not tug it hard, but just if it was to lay flat, it's going to fit perfectly within that space. Okay, and because this is not pressed at this point in time, you could take it over to the machine and press it, or this is where a fantastic of these little clips come in handy. It's going to hold it there in its place while you do the sewing that you need to. So you can pop a couple other ones in there, and there, to hold it in place. Okay, and it should be nice and even. Should be any bulk or any. It should fit. It should fit. It shouldn't. You shouldn't get a little pucker or anything else like that, or things weren't laying straight to begin with. Okay, so let's back underneath the machine. Overlap maybe, I don't know, 1/4 inch of the stitches that you had already just left off at. Unclip when you, of course, when you get to your project, you need to unclip from, or the part where you need to. Obviously, this is the project you're clipping on. Duh. Sorry. like I said, it's been one of those days. And then hugging it straight on down to the other stitches. And of course, overlapping. Straighten that out just a little bit. Okay, overlapping about 1/4 inch. I think that's the safest bet, okay? So now at this point, you have your binding all the way around the back side of your quilt project. So now you need to get it to the front. So again, you can pick any spot that you like. You can change your foot plate out, change your feet out. There's all sorts of decorative stitches on your machine. You can use a swirl, the zigzag. There's the one that kind of looks like a heartbeat. It's one of my favorites. You can just use a plain old straight stitch. So I'm going to up it to about 4.0 for the stitch length, and I am just going to do a straight stitch. So the key is, or the debate is how do you get it so it lines up between the top and the front, or the top and the back? That's not a guarantee. You just kind of got to wing it. So you have stitches here available to see visually because you stitched it to the back first, right? And you're going to flip it to the front. So if you place it underneath, I got to fold it over. And if you overlap your folded edge just over those stitches and hug your foot to the edge of that fabric, I think you're pretty good. I think you're pretty good. You may get it mostly on the backing part, or you may just get it to the underside of your binding. Sometimes it's a hit or a miss. That's why I think like a decorative stitch would make this, you know, you didn't really have to worry too much about it. But sometimes it can be a bit thick and a bit cumbersome sometimes, or it takes a long time to get that stitch done to go all the way around, okay? I see you, buddy, but I'm not talking to you. Clearly I just did. All right, and then slow and steady, just kind of try and line it up the best you can, because I'm trying, there's my stitches, and this is the fold of my fabric. I'm just coming over that fold, because I don't want to be able to see those stitches, right? So I'm just trying to fold over those stitches. And just doing, like I said, the best you can. It's all we can ever do in life. Okay. Just laying it flat. And this is a good opportunity here if you decide, okay, well, maybe my quilt wasn't big enough. I like the backing. I can give myself a big chunk all the way around. You can fold that to the front. There's so many options. Okay, so here's our corner, and we can tell there's lots of fabric there necessary for us to use on this corner. Hello, Mr. Magoo. Okay, so we're going to fold it. We're going to come all the way down to almost where we need to, 1/4 of an inch. So you can have, I'm just trying to lay it flat and keep it straight. See how I've got that little bit of a folded fabric there? I'm going to come all the way down till I'm about 1/4 of an inch away, okay? And then again, breaking threads or cutting threads or whatever. And then you see, nobody, ow, 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 no, sorry, no. Okay, you see that there, and we're just going to fold that over. So we get a nice little pleat. We get a nice little pleat in that corner. And then we're going to fold the fabric down. Sometimes, like I said, if you want to, it helps get these little clips in order to straighten it up or get you in place before you get there. They're great little clips, and of course you could use pins as well without any issue. Okay, so once you get to that fold, and you're happy with the way it sits, get back up there. You just want to come up and start again right where those fabrics are kind of interloping on each other. It's kind of like going this way, right? And then just trying to line up on those stitches on top. And that's how I'm going to finish this off. Easy peasy. And if any threads that do happen to peep out, like that one there, that's actually the basting thread from the long arm. I'm just going to take the seam ripper to it and just rip it out because it's of no use right now. It was only to keep it nice and square on the long arm. I love the mix of fabrics from this binding next to the quilt project itself because it's very colorful. And this is for my neighbor, and it's for her, one of her great nieces or nephews who's soon coming into the world. So, and I'm very excited to be able to do this for her and share with her. And she was very kind and generous to ask for my creativity and to do something beautiful for a loved family member. So, which is very nice. It's nice to be able to give, you know. And again, tucking it over to the other side because we need it to the front side. Just pull it straight down, Get that little pleat, little angled corner there. Hold it steady. You can put a little clip in it if you need to, or a pin. Just go, ow, no, Mr. Magoo. No, no, no. Okay, and then back up over here. Just fold. You could actually fold it like this and then just keep going around the corner. I mean, it's up to you. I kind of like to be able just to kind of stop and reset on the next side. So we know what it looks like. Okay, here, so there's that corner. Okay, so you can see that. Hopefully that looks really good to you. Okay, and then this side. Okay. And see, the stitches are just going on the between the binding and onto the backing. So, and it's loose enough that it's not a tight stitch. So, you know, I don't want to do it too tight. That's why I kind of moved it to 4.0 instead of the 2.4 I normally use, especially for the top side of the binding. Okay, lining it up, get that corner on the fold, and straight down. Okay. And in no time at all, you got your binding on your project. Sorry. Okay, if you put your tail underneath my foot, of course I'm going to step on it. I don't know about you, cat, but that seems the way it works for me. Oh, Mr. Magoo. Mr. Clive Magoo, you're such a smoosh. And I use a little bit of pop of blue, a little pop of gray, just to, you know, kind of break up the bit of the gold and tans and browns that I had going on this. Now, it can take a very long time to do binding. You may not even realize it, but you have to sew around your whole project twice, okay, with some tweakings. So take that into consideration, okay? So you think, oh, it'll take me like 20 minutes. No. That's like putting on borders. Are you kidding me? Borders do not take 20 minutes. And then this one here, again, stopped a little bit short. Be able to fold it, the fabric over. Once I get it cooperating here. There we go. He's starting to chew on things because I didn't pick him up. Oh, this is a cat. All right, and then again under just where the corners fold over to each other. They're linking up. Okay. Love that little polka dot fabric. That is so cute. And just folding it over. And like I say, you can clip this the whole way. You can pin it. A lot of people use the clips, especially if they're hand binding. They find it helps keep things in place. And of course, there's binding that you can pick up at your local fabric store. That is all sorts of different colors, solid colors. I don't think I've ever seen it in a pattern, but I'm not saying it's not out there. I'm just saying I don't think I've seen it binding in a pattern, but I've seen it in solid colors. That's about it. Okay, just had to reset that. It looked like I had to shift it off just a smidgy there. Okay, so we're almost done. Once around or twice around. Okay, flip this. Keep it straight, all the way down, and then one last one, little bit here to go, right? Yeah, okay. Folding it, so you can see it, tucking in any other stray threads or fibers or whatever, just tuck it underneath. Covering those base stitches as well as the normal stitch that we did for the other part, the other side of the binding, okay? Shifting it into place. Make sure it's folded over. And some of this fabric, all I had was just little tiny strips of it, so. All right, here we go. So here, again, it should be nice and straight and taut. Shouldn't be any puckers or folds or flips or flops or anything going on here. Should be nice and straight if you cut your binding correctly from the front to the back and sewed it together, so it should be okay. If you do happen to get a little pinch or a tuck, you can always try and rip back a little bit, straighten it out, tug it out, maybe do a press, do whatever it is that's going to make you happy with your project, okay? And of course, overlap about 1/4 inches. 1/4 inch, okay? And then trim up. And this is a great time to put your label on, anything you wanted to say to your peoples. Oops, I think I might have dropped a pin there. Okay. And there we go. And that is binding. Super easy, done, back to front. And then if you wanted to do it the other way, you would sew on the front, and then you would place it to the back by using clamps and stuff like that, and then you would hand stitch it. And you would take just a tiny bit, well, maybe try that next time, okay? I'll show you next weekend project how to hand stitch. You take a little bit from the back, and a little bit of your binding, a little bit of back, a little bit of binding, and away you go. Not making sure you're going right through the front, okay? You don't want to see any of those stitches. So thank you, everybody. This turned out to be a beautiful project. I think it was 43 by 47 or something like that in the end. It's lovely, a great way to deal with the panel, and look how beautiful it looks, especially with this little tan and flannel. Oh, the flannel backing is just gorgeous. I just love it. It's so soft. I love flannel. And of course, I stitched that with teddy bears. So hopefully you can see that a little bit on the cameras in the view. So, all right. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Have an amazing weekend. We will see you on Saturday at 1 p.m. where we're going to be doing a quilt as you go with our Prairie Moon project. You'll see how I'm going to start that. And hopefully, I probably won't be finishing it, but we'll try really hard. We may save the finishing part for another show. And we're just happy you're here, happy you're hanging out with us. If you like us, like and subscribe. Check us out on our live streams. We kind of have some cross-stitching ones going on during the week. And just kind of look for the posts or just sign up and you'll get a signal, okay? Thank you, everybody. Big hugs from us at the Mama Pop Quilt Shop. We appreciate you greatly. And hopefully this has inspired you to bind. I know Mr. Clive wants to cuddle. Take care, everybody. Have an amazing day. Thank you.